Hello, Star Family. I'm Michael. This next lunar cycle is going to take us through the northern winter holidays, the southern summer holidays, and into Gregorian calendar year 2024. So from me, I wish you happy winter solstice, happy new year, happy holidays to all. So this cycle begins on December 12th or 13th for some of our Euro friends and points east with a new moon in constellation of Fucus. And the full moon aligns on December 26th, or likewise 27th for much of the world, backed by the stars of constellation Gemini, reflecting an early Sagittarius sun. This month, the sun will appear to make passage over the Galactic Center, which is another way to say that there's an alignment of our planet, our star, and our galactic core. So different people mark the new year at different points. Like culturally, in the modern world, it's January 1st, the calendar year, new year for most people. Different people have always had their own relationship with time or yearly cycles, like solar cycles. So some people mark the new year at Samhain in mid-fall. Some people mark the new year at Yule in midwinter. Like most of Asia uses a lunar New Year calendar, so this year that'll be February 10th, but that isn't consistent to a calendar date, so it could be late January or early March. So there are a lot of ways to think about the boundaries of a solar year and the passage of time. One way to observe the new year is with the sun's astrological alignment with the Galactic Center. That's a supermassive black hole at the middle of the Milky Way galaxy called Sagittarius A star. So that sits here in this really ominous cloud. It's a region of space called the Black Road or the Black Way, the Dark Rift. The Mayans called it Xibalba Bay, a place of deaths and rebirths. So this is a place of reincarnation, and it's that degree of Sagittarius A star, the Galactic Center. It marks that really most serious of processes, life and death. It signifies this for any heavenly body that passes over it, death and life again. So we can see here that as the sun is being reborn, can get the art out of here and see Saturn is aligned this month with fixed star Fomalhaut. And you can't quite see it here. They might look a little out of alignment, but that's just the way the program is looking at that area of the sky. They will align this month, even though Saturn's slow moving. And later during this video, we'll look briefly at the Earth-Sun Galactic Center alignment as a kind of natal chart for the coming year. But a new moon in a Fucus signifies great depth, intensity, and wisdom. It also indicates light shined on things that are usually hidden. And it's an absolutely powerful full moon chart. It supports truth and taking action, making noble choices. There's a lot of healing in it. But if you're spending the holidays with your family this year, you're going to want to pay attention to the December 26th full moon section of this video, because there are volatile influences active around that time. So for anyone new to the channel or to this astrology, we're using uneven signs that match the skies and the zodiacal constellations. In other words, we're looking at the sky as it is. And for more information about why people would want to do such a strange and deranged thing, just check out, and by that I mean remarry astronomy and astrology after their long separation. I just invite you to visit the True Sidereal page on my site, oneskyastrology.com, and learn more about the history of Western astrology. This month we'll start where we always do, reviewing the sky for the new moon in the planetarium. So we're looking at the alignment December 12th, which is going to kick off this cycle. And the sun and moon meet squarely in a fucus, symbolizing the leg of the serpent bearer. The serpent bearer holds the serpent. He stands on the scorpion, and he symbolizes transformation of poison into medicine. These stars of Ophiuchus reflect a very complex archetype, and doubly complex in relation to Scorpio. I've made 2 videos about the constellation Ophiuchus, and I'll link in the video description and also at the end of the video. But we can see that while sun and moon meet in the serpent bearer's leg, that Scorpio remains really relevant as a set of stars just south of the ecliptic with a lot of really powerful influence here. Mars is moving through the area of the sky, which is governed by Scorpio and Ophiuchus too. And he's been close. Mars has been close to the sun for an entire month now, a whole cycle. Mercury is out ahead in Sagittarius, stationed retrograde at this point, so joining a very slow Pluto, who's been transiting Sag since about 2007 and will enter Capricorn next year. We have Saturn moving through Aquarius, and Pisces plays host to Neptune, Chiron, and a North Node Eris conjunction, which will be separating slowly, but it will be separating. Aries hosts Jupiter and Uranus. Jupiter and Uranus are both retrograde, and Jupiter will go direct this cycle and begin to move towards Taurus. And then, still back in Virgo, we have the South Node, very close to fixed star Alpha Virgo, Spica, this star which represents the treasure in the goddess's hand, or the grain in our modern Western mythology. And Venus, about to travel into the stars of Libra. So that's what our skies look like as we begin another lunar cycle. Let's look closer at the charts. So here we are. There's a new moon on the 12th December in my location in space-time. Could be the 13th of December. It'll be the 13th of December for many. So people align with new moon energy intentionally to plant seeds of designs to come. And they use it to rest and meditate very commonly, perhaps to journey or receive insight, maybe intentional visualization about what we want to align with or manifest over the course of that month. These are very common ways to approach new moon. So this new moon is, as discussed, in Ophiuchus with Mars. But just to look at Ophiuchus, I guess I've already said quite a bit on Ophiuchus, having made two videos. It's, like I said, links in the description. And approaching this lunation, one of the things I want to say about Ophiuchus is that, yes, emphatically yes. This is indeed like the portal. The portal in the sky, like all that woo-woo stuff you hear about Ophiuchus is actually true. This is really true, and this is peak transcendental territory as areas of the heavens go. And there's a power here. There's a power in Ophiuchus that can't be understood. Literally, it's transcendental. It couldn't possibly be glossed in a few minutes here in this video. This area of the sky represents the mysteries of existence. It represents literally what we don't know. Represents the hidden. It represents, more than any other, it represents those truths and things that are secret. They're too deep. They're just literally too deep. So Fucus resonates with that dance between life and death and those things at the very extremes of existence. This area of the sky is never separate from the context and influences of Scorpio. And this is indicating the regeneration and rebirth qualities that go along with Scorpio. They go along with the Fucus too. They're actually more heightened, I think, in a Fucus, regeneration and rebirth. But the cutting power and death urge of Scorpio is reflected too. The medicine and the poison, right? That secret place where the mysteries reside. That's this area of the sky. So we have life and death and life again. This area of the sky will always highlight what we hide and what we occult from others. And now the lights are here, right? So one of the things we may see this month is that things that were secret come to light. It's a very common Sun and Moon transiting Scorpio Fucus effect. We're conjoined to Mars as the Sun and Moon align to make this new moon. Mars is here, like 7 degrees away or so. And it's going to increase drive, action, really primal or primitive urges in Scorpio. The Sun and Moon aren't strong here in a Fucus. This isn't really their this is not friendly territory to them. But Mars is strong here. Mars is strong in Scorpio. So Martian themes that may have followed over as hangovers from the last new moon. If there's been a lot of jostling or fighting or arguing, or like if things have just seemed a little more highly charged for you, it's very likely that Mars in your chart is activated, or you're going through a Mars phase, have Mars lessons to learn and problems to deal with. And this month could continue to deepen and exacerbate those for you. So it could also, and there will be good news, so stay tuned. Don't change the channel just yet. But this whole thing is square to Neptune in Pisces. So Neptune squares are really notorious for like emotional insecurity, deceptions by ourselves or by others, being deceived by others. Could be false perceptions or impressions or visions, false visions, could be fake psychic news, right? So some astrologers advise that one of the best uses of time like this is to actually escape reality responsibly. When you have a Neptune square to Sun and Moon, one of the best things you could do is like engage in fiction or go to sleep. Entertainment, drama, theater, music, all of that. Get lost in it. Check out is like the cookbook advice. And I think it's good advice because this ramps up psychic sensitivity, but ramps down the accuracy of our impressions it ramps down the accuracy to reality of our psychic impressions. So we're having more of them and we're getting less information. So rather than the alternative, which would be to create or experience suffering or even illness out of confusion or maybe energetic misalignment or deception, false psychic impression, the hallmarks of Neptune squares to the lights, this alignment could reflect uncomfortable situations around anything kept hidden, right? With Sun and Moon and Mars here, sort of acting with this impulse, scorpionic impulse. We should be very careful, I think, throughout the whole month, just to be sensitive to our limitations in that regard. Sun and Moon also make a nice trine to Eris, and Eris is with the North Node in Pisces. So we're really like we've involved Pisces. We've got this Ophiuchus, this deep Ophiuchus moon, and it's very resonant, very, 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 very resonant with Pisces. And this alignment with Eris North Node, this trine from new moon, could be interpreted at a basic level as an appetite for chaos, right? North Node creates appetites, and Eris represents primordial urges, typically at odds with the status quo. Go, Eris. But the North Node also like eclipses. It kind of, dims or corrupts, perverts. These are like the common words. So we could experience dark obsessions very easily this month around sex and violence, this very Iridian theme. So if you catch yourself fixating, pull the plug. Just don't. It's just something that happens when Eris and North Node get together. It's a natural effect of consciousness to maybe fixate. And we can just recognize that we're doing this and stop. Or, if that needs to be applied continually, we can hopefully do that. And Mercury is stationed retrograde. So Mercury's also trine to Jupiter and sextile to Venus. Very auspicious Mercury. And this is going to give blessing and opportunity to think in new ways, access to new truths, as well as optimism, inspiration, access to visionary thinking. Jupiter trines open doors of opportunity and ascension, while Mercury stationed retrograde is like in its forwardmost position, in a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like a stepwise phase. Mercury stationed retrograde is at its most forward position before it will move back and then forward again. So this is a progressive and a forwardmost position of Mercury. And what's more, this is actually, I want to open up a sort of auxiliary chart here and show you Quaoar, because dwarf planet Quaoar is very closely conjoined to Mercury stationed retrograde. So this Mercury is resonant with progressive, right, and optimistic ways of thinking already, with Jupiter trine and in Sagittarius, and it's conjunct Quaoar, who lends great spiritual wealth with richness and insight and wisdom, understanding which blesses, and especially in a Jupiterian way, as Quaoar is a sort of a higher octave of Jupiter, and really a sort of more spiritual dimension of Jupiter. So this will act to create insight around how to benefit and how to create opportunity. In Sagittarius with Mercury station retrograde, this is going to be a progressive influence to thinking, which helps us to communicate positively, good ideas of acceptance, a big theme this month. And some of the themes are in the form of like tests or more like demands this month. And Mercury Quaoar is really going to give us the insight and the spiritual wisdom to help us understand these things and keep these things in mind. So it's very good to see here. Could bode really well for the holidays, for people who are doing holiday things. Could make things cheery, optimistic, festive, but we'll want to be careful with Mercury stationed retrograde, not to overshare, especially in Sagittarius. Man, this Mercury is in station retrograde. It's if you have a progressive take on truth, this Mercury could really feel a little bit like a know-it-all. So Sag can be kind of zealous, and Jupiter and Quaoar should do a lot to protect communication from harm and negativity here. This trine is very favorable for communication this month. But 'tis the season for so many people. And if families gathered and different generational points of view rear their head, like there's always a conservative uncle at the table who's had too much brandy in his eggnog, and he starts talking in ways that make people feel uncomfortable. So, like, first of all, don't be surprised, because that is Eris North Node. I mean, fixation on what we can't accept, what we won't accept, what we repress and refuse to acknowledge, even up to the appetite for inner conflict, internal conflict, civil war that Eris represents. All of this is like your drunken conservative uncle stuff. So you kind of expect it with Eris North Node. And remember that the astrology here supports truth. And truth with a capital T, but small t, subjective truth too. But only as long as you don't overshare, right? Mercury stationed can do that. So we have to be on guard against oversharing. So we have to be on guard against lecturing, oversharing, and keep things factual and fair to all sides. And that's going to align with Saturn, which is going to be really important as we continue to examine these charts. Because Saturn will be on fixed star Fomalhaut for the new moon, and that's going to act to keep things fair and very respectful of everyone's opinion. That's Fomalhaut's special medicine. It's universal and humanitarian, and it doesn't really take sides, right? It honors all sides. Where Eris North Node might act to drive a wedge and divide, Saturn on Fomalhaut is going to act to challenge us to see the big picture and all of it at once. So, victors and vanquished, friends and foe alike. Fomalhaut sees the bigger picture, and it challenges us to embrace our humanity. So for some people, this cycle will likely go one way, and for other people, it'll go the other way, especially with Pluto being still in this position of T-squaring the lunar nodes. This, combined with Eris's influence, is going to increase division, polarity, and opposition within groups. Eris North Node trine to an Ophiuchus Sun and Moon could be problematic, and we'll need to be on alert for unresolved emotional issues and how we might project them onto others, or how the unresolved past, which we might repress instead of address, how that bleeds into our present moment in undesirable ways. So some people who have done enough inner work, who have experience stalking their own behavior and pulling those weeds, right, roots and all, for many of us, it'll be a matter of just recognizing it, Mercury, Quail, or Jupiter, nipping it in the bud. But for other people, this North Node with Eris is going to generate compelling, obsessive, irresistible darkness, and we could really easily slip into suboptimal behavior and decision making. So we will have an inner enemy to be on guard against. And this degree of late Scorpio Ophiuchus, where the Sun and Moon meet, it represents the choice between the high road and the low road. And that's symbolized by the southern stars of the Scorpio's tail, the low road, the poison, and the upper stars of Ophiuchus as the head of the snake charmer and the stars that represent mastery over poison. Represents turning them into a spiritual elixir, healing medicine. So take a little bitters here and add it to your recipe, right? Metaphorically speaking. Don't reject those parts of yourself or others. But with the new moon here, the question is, will we address those hidden depths of ourselves, right? Symbolized by Eris North Node, those dark, twisted parts of our psyche that we all have in there, no shame. But do we have what it takes to be honest about them to ourselves and to allow those to express constructively and integrate into the whole of our healed and holistic psyche? That is a much greater challenge. Saturn on Fomalhaut. As this progresses, we'll see Saturn make his third pass over fixed star Fomalhaut, as mentioned. And this will highlight different processes for different people, but they'll likely be processes that challenge us. That's Saturn's medicine, so he's highlighted this month. We could be challenged to see across polarities, thinking of our opponents or rivals or enemies, reflecting on what we have in common with them could be very, very beneficial at this time. Thinking of humankind and the overwhelming commonality that all people share regardless of geographic or cultural matrix, right? We all just want to be happy, to have security, to live life with as much joy as possible, to enjoy it. Even your far-right conspiracy theory-loving uncle at his drunken worst, he wants happiness, right? And security, sure, and to experience joy in life. No different. So I think being aware of all this sort of human baseline, this commonality of goodness will kind of help us to do what this lunar cycle is asking, and that's take the high road approach to our choices in resonance with the fucus, and this will attract power, presence, and authority to us by resonating with Saturn. And this area of the sky makes me think of a Mayan saying, a Toltec saying, which is that death is one's closest friend and wisest advisor. And they said that because when we have decisions to make, important decisions, and we stand at that crossroads, it's very good to invoke death, to close your eyes and imagine death, your death or any death, the reaper or a skeleton or an old guy in a dark hat, whatever it is, the grandmother with a face you can't see, it's just death. And whatever that is to you, it sits there to your left, and you bring it in and you think about that choice in the presence of death, and you make that choice in the presence of death, because this will bring you closer to cutting through to what's really important, because you may have just one chance to do this, and death keeps us very vividly reminded of that. So this is a very empowered area of the sky for death, and we see a lot of decision making here too. So I'm reminded of this story, and I hope that it helps you. In light of the charts generally, if you have an important choice to make, a decision now or at any time, really, right? That's just a teaching from the Mayan wisdom schools. Good to involve death, to fight off frivolity, and at those times you need to be cutting through with focused energy, pointed, focused energy. This is a Scorpio Fucus specialty. Yeah. So let's move on to the waxing quarter moon. All right. The waxing quarter we have here on 19th of December. It's going to be representing the sprout of the seed that was planted in the new moon and the shape of things to come. Give clues to the manifestation of the full moon. So we always see that moon square to sun. We'll come back to this chart in the context of the waxing quarter moon after we look at its main feature, which is that the sun is here and it's conjoined the Galactic Center, something I mentioned earlier in the video. And I want to look at that in the context of a natal chart for the year ahead. So I'm actually going to shift a little bit, jumping around a little bit more in this video than usual, but I want to shift to a geocentric chart. This is the exact alignment that happens about 8 hours earlier, that same day, 19th December. Sun's still square moon. We're at the waxing quarter moon a couple hours earlier that day. Precious little changes here in this chart, but the moon has about 5 degrees to go. So I want to say a little bit about what the sun is in a natal chart, or any chart, what the sun represents astrologically. It's an integration point, and the only way to really understand what the sun does is in the context of the rest of the chart, because the sun is that point that represents, in a natal chart by sign and house, it represents how the entire chart is going to come together in an integrated way and express. So it's sort of like a bottom line. Like the sun usually bottom lines the chart. You have all this other stuff going on, but how is it going to accomplish its goals? Oh, that way it will accomplish its goals and manifest its purpose and destiny will be described by the sun. So, with that said, for the collective, when we're looking at this chart and we're just saying, oh, for here, all of us on Earth, the sun, in mundane astrology, for the transiting sun, the year coming up, for the collective, this flavors consciousness and awareness itself, or our human experience of it. And it has a lot to do with how we process and integrate, our lived experience. So it does act as the bottom line. And when we see here that sun's passing the GC, this point of death and rebirth, I want to emphasize again that the Galactic Center acts as a point of death and rebirth for all bodies that pass it. And for the sun, it's just a point that we can, not entirely arbitrarily, but it's one way of marking that yearly cycle that I think is very telling. So let's look at this as a natal chart for the year ahead. We have sun and moon, and they're in the square. Moon is still with Neptune, which means sun is square to Neptune. So sun square Neptune, moon conjoined Neptune. That is definitely going to increase sensitivity and emotional impressionability, just really generally speaking. Sun squares to Neptune can increase confusion and self-deception and escapist tendencies. This can bring escapist tendencies to the fore, martyr and victim mentalities, and there can just be strange confusions, like bizarre obstacles, like things can you could just have to drive somewhere and there could be, like you could just catch every red light and things would just be so, just weird and wrong for no reason. The Neptune squares are just like, just everything going wonky. Strange obstacles. Saturn then in the orb of Fomalhaut now, but also making the two most important star conjunctions, Saturn. So I want to talk a little bit about Saturn. I think this is going to have a lot to do not just with this chart and this month, but this year. First of all, Saturn makes only supportive aspects to Sun, Mercury, and Saturn. That's all he's doing. So I'm very glad to see that. Saturn supports Jupiter and Mercury via the sextile, while Jupiter and Mercury are trine each other. This is going to give patience and strategy a main role in the coming year. A main role in our success, a main role in our thinking and communication. Jupiter and Quaoar will bless this, all Saturnian matters, but Fomalhaut ensures, right, that this blessing is only extending as far as the humanitarianism and inclusivity of the individual or group in question. So we've looked at that before, and we'll look more at that soon. I'm not going to bring up Fomalhaut and not just sort of explain the basic idea of a royal star here. But for now, I want to say Saturn also sits very close to Epsilon Pegasus, fixed star Inif. And this creates a strong alignment with the Pegasus constellation. Now I'm going to just talk a little about the mythology of Pegasus. She sprung from Medusa's murder. She sprung from Medusa's psyche upon Medusa's murder by Perseus. And we'll have to say a little more about Pegasus later too, and kind of put a couple of things off to later in the video. But the Neptune Moon conjunction happens on Alpha Pegasus Markab. So also for the next new moon, January 11th. Okay, it's December 19th at the time of this chart. We're talking January 11th, 2024. Saturn conjoins Fomalhaut to one arc minute, 0 degrees, 1 arc minute. So it's coming, you know. Everything we can do to prepare and be aware is good, even though, trying to take that approach with Saturn is like having to go to the dentist for your so it's like going to the dentist and trying to do all your just like trying to brush your teeth for 2 hours right before you go to the dentist. If you haven't been brushing your teeth every day, you know, get drilled and filled. That's what's going to happen. So here's Saturn coming. Never a bad time to show up for your responsibilities, but Saturn's a more long-term thing. And the ultimate outcome will have more to do with how you've been over the last 7 years, 14 years, 21 years, and 29-year cycles. Saturn conjunct Eniv isn't really associated with important events, but it activates Pegasus. Saturn on Fomalhaut, right, on the other hand, the other and more important star it's on, is commonly understood as a terrible, horrible downfall influence. But Fomalhaut's a lot more complex than that. And I said we'd look at it in depth, so or at least at some significant depth, so we will. Fomalhaut is an incredibly powerful star linked to ideals and to dreams. It's commonly understood as extreme, either very bad or very good. Bernadette Brady writes that being touched by this star raises a need to be honest about our motivations and to keep endeavors oriented to integrity in regard to the group. Right? We call this particular ideal inclusivity or diversity, this sort of altruism we call like humanitarianism, like an all-inclusive kind of appreciation. And we tend to consider it a leftist or liberal concept societally. So sitting on this star is Saturn, who is a rather right-leaning or conservative influence, right? Who in mundane astrology rules law and order, social cohesion, justice, and systems. All this ho-hum stuff. Very important, but very ho-hum. And it's a little bit of a strange cocktail, but in order to align ourselves with success this year, we can develop and support systems, that's Saturn, that are aligned to the greater good. That's Aquarian, but that's Fomalhaut. And that Aquarian ideal is the ideal of the beauty of the collective, the good of the collective. So this Saturn in sextile, he stabilizes and strengthens, and he promotes safety and thrift. He indicates responsible attitudes, conservative actions. But we can invite his best influence from this position here on this star and in these constellations. We can invite that best influence by shying away from praise or attention or personal flattery. Personal glory should not be the driving force of endeavors, and that's going to invite the downfall, right? The very, very bad side that gets interpreted with Fomalhaut so often. The driving force, my friends, the motivation for our endeavors should be as rich with altruism and integrity as we can possibly infuse it with. That is the blessing here. That's how to trigger the blessing. With Eris, conjunct North Node, there is a little bit appetite for destruction here. The North Node with Eris can make it seem poetically justified, the destruction that is, or ethically nebulous, or somehow this has the potential to twist consciousness, to take grave actions, right? There's really serious stuff, really serious measures here. Eris in contact with Sun, Moon, Mars, and North Node can twist things. So be sure that you're on the proper ethical footing with Eris eclipsed, right? Because her trine to Mars indicates action. So you don't want to take action from a devious point of view. That's not indicated with Saturn in his position. Generally never indicated. Generally the planets are lords of karma and consequence, but I don't take a moral approach to astrology. I take an ethical approach to astrology. I take a very fine ethical comb to all this, and I don't find that it's ever really advisable to act in devious ways, except when you have to, to protect what's good, or to protect someone. Without going on too much, I'm going to get back to the chart and say Jupiter trine Mercury is a real signifier of hope, advancement, opportunity, breakthrough. Jupiter is sharing Aries with Uranus, and that could be like next echelon type breakthroughs. Really, things that change our thinking itself or approach to something. It's very likely to change for the better, and we could be empowered to take new courses of action, generally speaking. Doing new things is really blessed at this time. So if you're stuck in any way, try something new. Just try something you haven't tried before. Something instinctual, right? Digging deep and connecting with our animal side. It's a very Sun-Mars thing. And our body needs, right? What our instincts are telling us. That's Aries, resonant with Mars. That's a Jupiter and Aries thing. Trine Mercury and Sag. This is all really a time where we'll be listening to our bodies. And so if you're confused, meditate and listen to your cells, right? Listen to your bone marrow. Listen to your own DNA and the knowledge of your ancestors that flows through your body now, because there could be answers here, really powerful answers at this time. Moon with Neptune loves that stuff. One of the last things I see for this chart, this New Year's chart of the Sun and this waxing quarter moon chart at the same time, is Uranus opposite Venus. I want to say a couple of things about that. That marks the solar year as a time to try new things. Try new things. You don't even know that you will appreciate them yet. That's the kind of year this could be. And Uranus oppositions correlate with a kind of anxiety that's a sort of stressful energy, like a fidgety energy, and it challenges us to align with the high truth of the archetype, right? Venus here. So, Venus receives support from friend Moon and higher octave Neptune, and lover Mars, some pretty close support here. And that's great because the Aries Libra axis, this is about where Uranus and Venus are. This is about growing into the people we know we have the potential to be. It's about being inspired and delighted in relationship, and about pushing our own boundaries and transcending our own limitations in Aries as individuals, especially around the goals and things we want to accomplish, things we want to do. So we can do novel things and take new turns and maybe even unexpected, surprising, daring turns. All of these are blessed. Could be a year to be extra careful with money, though. There's a tendency towards like risky schemes with Uranus opposite Venus, and Venus in Libra is going to be a wealth lord. Uranus will soon hit Taurus, so there's going to be a tendency towards risky schemes. Yeah, gambling wealth away. Yeah, that happens under this influence. So, Neptune moon, this Neptune moon is squaring the sun from the degree of Alpha Pegasus. I mentioned that, Markab, and it activates Pegasus energies. It activates the energies of Pegasus, just like Saturn being on Alpha Pegasus in Neef. In mundane astrology, the shadow of Pegasus is associated with drowning, accidents, catastrophes, earthquakes, all kinds of disaster, watery disaster especially, tsunami, storms, floods, shipwrecks. And the bright side, the brilliance of Pegasus is reflected in matters of transportation, communications, space travel, exploration, pioneering, science, invention, and heroism. These are the hallmarks of Pegasus. An afflicted Neptune might indicate political instability or collapse. Afflicted here by square to the sun. Square to Mars, square to Sun, blessed by Venus, but Neptune this year in the mundane astrology, since we're looking at the solar galactic alignment as a chart for the sun's next solar year, I think we can say that Neptune here square the sun brings it into the fore, and Neptune squares in mundane astrology do indicate political instability or collapse, distortion, fraud or corruption, deceit, confusion, apathy, especially apathy. Pluto squares the lunar nodes, the very last thing I want to say about this chart, and this creates polarities. One of the polarities is the extremism, right? Anything that's antagonistic or pressurized or divisive leads to extremism. And then there's the other extreme of extremism. The opposite end of the spectrum from extremism is apathy. And both are likely to play a very pronounced role this year. As a way of seeing a new solar year, it has its ups and downs like any chart. I'm glad to see Fomalhaut activated. I'm glad to see Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury's connection. As the flavor of this one lunar cycle, this is a really philosophical and balanced chart. It supports a lot of good thought and communication about bigger topics of greater import, but there could be confusion and the option to clarify confusion, to cut through it, right, by strategizing new patterns of action. This favors action and it carries blessing, and we'll need to use those blessings to navigate confusion. It's true for both contexts. For the Sun solar return chart, to solar new year chart, whatever it is, and the waxing quarter moon chart. So I've said a lot about that, more than I usually say about a waxing quarter moon. And I'm going to try and blaze through this, but we are just getting now to the full moon on 26th December. Let us drink some powerful coffee and make headway through the rest of this video, my friends. The intention of the full moon is the manifestation, like the peak of the cycle when the sun and moon are like maximum dynamic tension. It's the time when the happening happens. So we have a Gemini moon and a Sag sun, right? And that's about a lot of things that compare and contrast, like Gemini's words versus Sagittarius's truth, right? In Gemini, we deal with like just concepts, but in Sag, we deal with their meaning in their larger context. So we have concepts versus context. In Gemini, we have more like ambiguous kind of rules, just sort of like we make them up as we go along. In Gemini, it's just all like what I think might be real. But in Sag, we very closely adhere to natural law and how the hell things actually are. That's a very important Sag principle. So in Gemini, we're very logical. In Sag, we're very intuitive, instinctual, very right brain. Sag is very right brain, while Gemini represents the left brain. And Gemini's language and rhetoric oriented, where Sag is about metaphysics and philosophy. So this is a great learning teaching axis, right? Powerful, powerful, powerful learning teaching axis. But the moon in Gemini is resonant with the mind. And it's very resonant with our thinking. Moon also governs a lot of our thinking and patterns our thinking. So Moon in Gemini here is infused with the light of the sun from Sagittarius. Right, this is very resonant with spirit. It's very resonant with deep truth and, philosophical high truth. So it's a great time to commit to spiritual work, a spiritual path. Double down on your internal work, your yoga, meditations, contemplations. The alchemy of your personal preference is like favored very highly this full moon to bring powerful results. We have these trines to Saturn and Jupiter. And healing, we have Chiron stationed direct. A lot of good omens we'll look at a little closer. We have Mars and Mercury conjoined pretty closely on the degree of Shaula, fixed star Shaula, trine to Eris North Node. Yes, square to Neptune in Pisces. Yes, the home star runner. Mars and Mercury are known for sharp tongues and quick, high-strung temperaments. So, kind of a bundle of exposed nerves it could be with all this square to Neptune and Pisces sensitivity. And I really want to caution everyone out of all the things I see in the chart, right near the holidays here, the holidays we've got all of these impulses to chaotic, confused, obscured actions that we're twice as likely to be just confused about, and the impulse to burn bridges or say something really sharp that we're going to regret. Jupiter and Saturn play this awesome role in the full moon because they make these trine sextile relationships. Each make a trine sextile relationship to the sun-moon opposition, and they make a sextile relationship to each other, bringing this fully supportive, very powerful formation into being. So this might save the day by bringing some seriousness to the situation, right? With Jupiter trine to Sun, I think that's awesome. It brings blessings. It opens doors of opportunity, typically, bringing wealth, advancement, expansion. Saturn, likewise, trines the moon, and that tends to be a little bit difficult, but this Jupiter sextile will protect, Sun protects, and in a lot of ways, Moon is with some of her better friends here. So Saturn's trine might not bring such hard feelings or sadness, depression, or pessimism. This combines the fire stars with the air stars. So this is going to infuse Jupiter expands, Sun expands from the fire signs. Saturn and Moon are receptive and contracting influences in the air signs. And this will infuse our thinking with spiritual inspiration at this time. This should be a great holidays as long as we don't, mouth off or sass people who we might have disagreements with, especially around those progressive points of view. Oh yeah, this is really good for actions that have been planned or strategized too. This is good for actions that are not premeditated. This influence kind of balances and strengthens them as long as they're in alignment with Fomalhaut's ideals, the good of the group. So, put down your petty differences and respect each other. These are Fomalhaut's unreasonable demands. even if we differ, damn it, respect, right? Even if we diverge on issues or disagree outright, we can sit around, be members of the same community, be living in the same neighborhood, and we can consider ourselves, partners in a social sense and citizens, primarily. This is really resonant. This is really resonant with Saturn, Fomalhaut. Elsewhere, I want to point out Chiron is stationed. Chiron's stationed direct. Chiron's a tiny little centaur, kind of half comet, half asteroid, out between Saturn and Uranus. And Chiron is stationed direct, so very resonant with the past, okay? The opposite of that progressive resonance of Mercury stationed retrograde that I mentioned earlier in the video. This stationed direct, kind of the other way. It's kind of the most backwards we can be. I'm not going to say a lot about Chiron. It doesn't interact with any of the planets except Eris, but it will create it's just a sort of generic resonance by being stationed direct. Then that resonance will be with prior traumas, old wounds, and the past and its pains right around the holidays, right? So, yikes. I think the intention here in this full moon chart expressed astrologically is around personal power, right? Personal, why? Sun, moon, that makes it personal. Power, Jupiter, Saturn, right? So we have this big formation. We have power, and it's informing the core of our person, core of our personhood, our consciousness, awareness. We'll want to be aware that the caution is around taking confused action, right? These Neptune squares continue to present the alternative here, which is we could take totally confused actions. We'll want to be aware of the influence of Chiron, station direct, right? Because this is resonant with not just early experiences, adverse childhood experiences, but ancestral trauma, generational trauma. This could rear its head. We'll want to be aware of these Neptune squares. Always want to be aware of Neptune squares and how close those alignments are, and just be on our best lookout for untoward or unbecoming behavior that could be influenced by this Eris North Node in conjunction or Neptune in square. That includes deception, especially deception. So with the new moon, we saw a choice, right? The high road, low road choice. And the full moon sees Mars, Mercury on the Shala Rasa Hog axis, which may force this choice, along with confusing it, right? That's the Neptune square confuses it. But the passage of Mercury and Mars over this degree can force choice. So acting out of love and doing your best to be wise with respect to Fomalhaut, Saturn's powerful, universal altruism and that influence on this full moon. Again, always advisable to act out of love. I've rarely seen it go wrong. Sometimes the love can be diluted and confused, but acting out of love is almost always better than the alternative to act out of fear or worse. Yeah, don't want to say too much more in the interest of time. I've gone on a long time already, and we're almost there, so I want to jam through it. I wish everyone an amazing holidays this year. Bless you and your families and your friends and your conversations and your just everything. Bless your holidays. Let's move on to the waning quarter moon. All right, fam, waning quarter, January 3rd, or here where I am, it's 2200. So for a lot of people in the world, that'll be January 4th. Seems to be a theme this month. The waning quarter moon often gives a lot of information about how we'll be processing things, how we'll be, regardless of what happened, it has a lot to say about how the internal sort of reflection will be. Because a waning square to sun from moon is just a retrospective, reflective time when we have a lot of contemplative power. We can apply our insight to the past very well. We have Eris Chiron North Node stellium here, opposite a moon with the south node and T-squared by the sun. And for this we have Mercury, now gone direct again, trine to Eris. All the other things that are going on in this chart, and there are some that we could might mention. I want to just summarize it all and say that the potential is high that this lunar cycle will be jarring in some way or experienced as disharmonious. There's nothing wrong with that if that's the case for you. We didn't fail. Sometimes the cosmic cocktail gets shaken, not stirred, and that's how life works. Different folks will fare differently on this one. Like I said, this whole lunar cycle is going to go some ways for some people and other way for some other people. But we may experience urges to beat ourselves up. That's not really needed. That's sort of a moon south node in Virgo effect. And realizing how we can grow and become wiser, more resilient, more accepting. That's the medicine that we can look here from this vantage point, this waning quarter vantage point, and we can discover how we can be more accepting, more resilient, and wiser. With Saturn here on Fomalhaut, this is a major stellar influence. This is a big planet that has a lot to do right now with sort of creating the umbrella that all of the rest of it happens under. So we want to remember Saturn while he's here in so powerful a position, now within 1 degree, Fomalhaut. Shebang, bang, let's get out there, check it out. In the future, we'll be having a new moon in Sagittarius, quite naturally, later, closer to Pluto, conjoined actually on January 11th, 2024. So we're in the future. This new moon has a lot of interesting things, a lot of outer planet activity. It doesn't connect with any of the inner planets, but it has a lot of deep stuff going on. Major aspect to Uranus, major aspect to Neptune, major aspect to Pluto, major aspect to Eris, Chiron square thrown in there for good measure, and wide semi-square to Saturn. Saturn, by the way, will be on Fomalhaut to 1 minute. So this is going to so emphasize everything we've talked about in regard to altruism, humanitarianism. But, my friends, if I've done this right, we can keep this video at about an hour and get through the whole Sun conjunct Galactic Center thing. So I want to just leave it here. It's going to be exciting. We're going to take a look at this Sag new moon. I'm going to guess that's a Cancer full moon, most likely reflecting a Capricorn sun. Give me a big cycle, kicking off a whole new year, and I'll see you then, friends. I want to promote a video I just released. It was in this dialogue series that I'm doing. It's the, I guess the fourth one. I'm starting to lose track. I was with Fran Arnett of faempowerment.com, a heliocentric astrologer who really loved sitting down and talking to and getting that conversation recorded for the people. So I'll try to link to that in the description, if not at the end of the video, maybe both. Please, my friends, I'll put it up, the link, shebang. Sarina is making progress with her disability process, but there's still no chance of her earning income, and she needs help. She needs help until she gets that decision. It's coming soon. I know you're sick of hearing it, but we need help. So there's the link. Please give, my friends, if you're in a position to. I want to invite everybody who's listening, who just wants to get closer, gain more familiarity with the constellational or true sidereal or true lifetime sky or live sky or whatever system you use. There's so many systems, and at Radical Astrology on Facebook, we're just down with them all. We just like when astronomy and astrology are talking to each other. Just feels less dysfunctional. So if that feels less dysfunctional to you, come over to Radical Astrology on Facebook. Just join. You'll have a couple questions to answer to make sure you're not a robot. Yeah. Oh yeah, friends. And last but not least, me, oneskyastrology, be promoting myself, my work. I do natal charts, I do transits, I do returns, I do relationship astrology. What I do applies the logic and matrix of evolutionary astrology to the living skies, the real skies, just as they are. Shabam, fam, I'm out of here. It's been a delight. Thank you. Bless you all. I'll see you next month.